My name's Elizabeth Kinder, and I trained as a musician and an ethnomusicologist, and I've worked with bands as diverse as Belinda Carlisle and Primal Scream, and I became a chief feature writer for F Roots magazine. No, actually, no one's heard of it. Actually, not even my mother reads it, I have to say. But it focuses on world music and folk music, and I live in West London. And in May 2007, I was diagnosed with relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis. And the symptoms that took me to the doctor were dizziness, disorientation. I felt a really weird kind of disconnection from life, like I was having to grab at cogent thought, and words became quite difficult to form, which was obviously quite tricky if I was interviewing people. And that's my excuse today, by the way, if it all goes pear-shaped. Anyway, I was also experiencing random electric shocks in my legs and feet, weird numbness in my left hand, and I was convinced that I had a brain tumour. So when my charming consultant neurologist, Dr. Malik, who I'm sure if you're at Imperial that some of you will know, he said, "Elizabeth, you've got MS, I think it's relapsing remitting." I just said, "Well, are you sure I haven't got cancer?" And he said, No, Elizabeth, no, you haven't got cancer. See here on your scan, these white spots. He said, these are lesions caused by MS. And then he told me about the immune system attacking the myelin sheaths, protecting the nerves in my brain. And the next step would be to go on a course of steroids to reduce the inflammation. I said, what, no tumours? And he said, no, Elizabeth, no, they're not tumours. And then I spotted this great big lump, and I thought, right, okay, what's that then? He went, "Elizabeth, that's your brain stem." I went, yes, result. What a relief. I went rushing out and I told my friend, it's fine. I haven't got cancer. I've just got MS. And she said, oh my God, that's awful. Yeah. How long before you're totally paralysed and in a wheelchair like Jacqueline Dupre? And I had no idea. He said, but there's your doctor, go and ask him. So I ran off, Dr. Malik, how long have I got before I'm totally paralysed and in a wheelchair like Jacqueline Dupre? And he just said, Elizabeth, MS affects everyone differently. You may never need a wheelchair. And that was so helpful, and it stayed with me. Because at the time, it was just awful. My husband and I went onto the MS Trust and the MS Society websites, and we gathered leaflets and information, and the more we learned about MS, the more desolate and depressing and hopeless everything seemed. And we were learning that being diagnosed with a long-term degenerative disease is really psychologically painful. And not just for those of us with it, but for those close to us. Everything was just so uncertain. And I was already experiencing the unpredictability of the condition. I was feeling quite bright one day and then absolutely flattened the next. Our daughter was 8 at the time. And initially, we just told her that I might be a bit more tired than usual, but I was appalled by the possibility of paralysis. I was incredibly frightened about being unable to do all the things that I took for granted, like the morning school run, or watching Eve play netball in the pouring rain. Things that I might usually swerve actually suddenly became really vital that I do them. And the idea of being trapped in reliance on care was awful. I didn't want my daughter or my stepson to become my carers in any way, and certainly not my husband, who has a pathological fear of ill health. Anyway, into this grim uncertainty, Dr. Malik threw a lifeline of hope. He told me about the nature of the disease and basically the 3 different types that you probably all know about here. He didn't say it was incurable, but he just said there was as yet no cure, and that was really important because of the hope that it implied. And he said that after the steroids that I would go on, there were basically 3 options available to me at that time. I could do nothing and try and manage the disease through diet and exercise. And anecdotally, he said people reported yoga as being really helpful. He said I could go on a course of beta interferons, which didn't work for everyone and could have horrible side effects. He said I could try and get on a drug trial that he then knew was recruiting, and if I was eligible, this might prove to be my best hope of effective treatment. And that it was really important to get effective treatment early, because this might help to reduce the rate of relapse and delay the possible onset of the more aggressive forms of the disease. And I was keen to do everything I could to keep my journey with MS out of the fast lane and firmly onto a slow, winding, scenic route. And I felt strongly that I had a responsibility to be proactive and to provide hope for my family and myself, and to do everything that I could to alleviate the anxiety that surrounded this diagnosis. And also to mitigate the assumptions that are made about me because of it. And that's why I jumped onto the chance to get onto the trial. And after weeks of testing and pleading, I was given a place. And this was to test the efficacy of a compound called fingolimod against a well-known beta interferon. And I'd like to say thank you to those of you here who were involved in the trial. I mean, well-meaning friends said that I was absolutely mad to take the risk, and one of the side effects that had been listed was sudden death, at which point I stopped reading, I have to say, but going on to the trial felt a lot safer than going for so-called cures on the internet. Because where hope is important in a positive prognosis, false hope can be absolutely disastrous. I mean, I had a friend of mine who lost his life savings traveling to Bulgaria to have stents put in the veins in his neck when liberation treatment was the latest miracle cure. And it ultimately made his condition a lot worse. Anyway, back to the trial, I put my faith in medical science and the certain knowledge that it was in the interests of everyone involved to keep me upright. And I was immediately plugged into a brilliant medical support network here at Imperial, run by Dr. Nicholas. I mean, it is absolutely fantastic. And I was given regular checkups, and these range from the low-tech, following the finger in front of your face, to being ushered into machines boasting the latest scientific technology. And it was all massively reassuring for me and my family. And I believe that awareness, I know that the gentleman here is trying to get onto the clinical trial, and I just think it's such a good thing to do, because not least because it can be hugely empowering, which is extremely important when you've got a condition that can render you helpless and cut through your sense of self-worth. Because we all tend to define ourselves, I think, and find our worth through what we do and sort of what we can do for others, whether it's as simple as helping our children get dressed, or whether you're writing articles, as I might be doing, or running a global bank, as I'm never going to do. And with the diagnosis of MS, as you'll be aware, everything comes crumbling down. I mean, would my husband have married me if I'd had that diagnosis before we got hitched? I don't know. I don't think so, actually. Would we have had Eve if there was a risk that I couldn't care for her? I don't know. And it's not your future, just your future, that's been derailed, but your relationship with yourself and with others, because obviously it impacts on their future too. And dealing with the lack of certainty, especially when its absence comes as a shock, is hard. I mean, I always used to feel like a child when I walked into a hospital, feeling that my care and safety was dependent on the adults who worked there. But going on the trial, I was made to feel part of a team. And that's not a team that actually was working towards finding a breakthrough in treatment. And that wasn't just empowering, actually, it was also exciting. And on this, when you're involved in this kind of thing, you're made to feel that you really matter, that your experience matters, and it can be put to good use. Just by being you and helping yourself, you are helping others. And that's an invaluable building block in recovering your self-worth. And that actually also has a concomitant impact on a much more positive prognosis. But you don't need to be on a trial to have that sense of empowerment, because whatever medication works for you or not, as the case may be, or whatever approach you take to managing your health, your experience really matters, because it feeds into the understanding of what will work and why. And as well as going on to the trial, I determined to find out as much as I could about how I might navigate this new reality. And a friend of mine said, "Oh, I know someone who's got MS, I'll introduce you." And she introduced me to this guy, Alistair Fraser, who is known probably to some people here. And Al had been diagnosed in 1993 when he was 35. He was a sporty, successful advertising executive. He had a wife and 3 children under 5 years old. And at the time, he was told there was nothing that could be done. And by the time his youngest was 10, he was confined to a wheelchair. And by the time I met him in 2007, 2008, he was reliant on 24-hour care. He was, and is, remarkably funny. And he made me realize that self-worth needs to be located in being, in how we are with others, and not what we can physically do for them, or what we might do for a living, or how much we earn. And I asked him how he managed to feel good about life. And he said at the end of every day, he looked at 5 golden nuggets, not in a kind of Gollum kind of way, but thinking of 5 things that had happened that day that made him happy. Even if he felt really pissed off, he would do this. And one of the things might be as simple as seeing the sunshine. And he told me that for my own mental health, to focus on the things that I can do and try and adopt a sense of gratitude for those rather than focusing on the things I can't. And that really helped me because I've been doing exactly the opposite. And I was so impressed with him. I said, wow, do you dream of doing anything still? And he said, yes. He'd like to go to Iona once more, which is Scottish Western Isle, where he worked on a croft when he was 18. And so we went together and filmed the journey to raise awareness about MS. And meanwhile, back on the trial, it started in September 2007 and finished in July 2017. And discussing fingolimod with me one day and the treatment of MS generally, Dr. Nicholas said, Elizabeth, we are of nature. We are not above it. And that was such an eye-opener because it inspired me to start exploring our interconnection with our environment. And I think I'm right in saying that it's still not known what triggers MS. It could be environmental, lack of sunlight, might mean a lack of vitamin D, which is implicated, or it could be viral. The Epstein-Barr virus might be an issue, or genetic, some Viking gene. It could be all or none of these things. But there is now a lot of research into the human microbiome, the bacteria that we have in our gut, where there are as many neurons there as there are in our spinal cord, and where it's thought that about 80% of our immune system lies. And there's this whole gut-brain connection, and a healthy mind and body, a healthy immune system absolutely depends on a healthy and balanced microbiome. And the food we eat is absolutely key to achieving and maintaining a healthy balance between good and bad bacteria in our gut. Again, everybody's different, but for me, I find that when I eat less gluten, less refined sugar, don't drink fizzy drinks, apart from champagne if I can get my hands on it, less processed foods and bad fats. In fact, when I follow what's known as an alkaline diet with lots of greens, there's this technical hitch here, with lots of greens, preferably organic, I feel much better, I have more energy, and I sleep better. And there's a website that I find really useful. It's called Live Energized, and it's run by a guy called Ross Bridgeford. And I think he really does his research. And there's such a lot you can do to help yourself. Just by eating, you can actually help yourself feel much better. And in fact, while I'm talking about websites, there's one called msbrainhealth.org, which is full of really good information about your brain, how to keep it healthy. And the information is also available in lots of different languages. And some of the things they advise are exercise. Keep doing what you can. It's not just good for the heart, it's good for the brain. And the brain is very plastic and can create, sorry, I've got a bit of a cold, so I'm sniffling rather. And it can create new neural pathways to keep you doing things. And this was confirmed actually to me by a Pilates teacher in Glasgow at a wonderful charity there called Revive MS Support. Al and I went to film there and I took part in a class. Pilates can help with balance, core strength and mobility, and the movements are very small. And it actually, and this, it's not just Pilates, not just yoga, other therapies can really help, like reflexology can really help if you're looking after your feet, counselling, aromatherapy, they can all help you manage your symptoms. And Al received a massage that enabled him to make the rest of the journey to Iona. I also met with one of the researchers working on the Brain Health Initiative, and he said that as well as diet and whatever physical exercise you can manage, exercising your brain through doing crosswords, learning a new language or a musical instrument, or singing is actually really good for your brain too, although the last two, obviously, in my case, were not good for anybody else. And as Dr. Malik suggested at the outset, I found yoga very helpful, particularly Iyengar yoga, where you're always supported in a particular position, so you're never uncomfortable, and it's also quite meditative. And meditation is really, really good for you. It's been shown to increase the grey matter in the brain. It helps release endorphins, and I don't know how to pronounce it, serotonin, and dopamine, which help make you feel good and have a positive impact on your body on a cellular level. It has an impact on your immune system. And again, this isn't kind of hippie shit. It's all to do with this gut-brain connection. And for meditation, there's an app called Headspace, which I found very useful. Anyway, the trial that I was on ended in 2017, and the drug was rolled out as Gilenya as a second-line treatment on the NHS. And this means that patients have to fail on another drug first. Well, that's how they put it. And I would like to say here that we need to change that language, because people might be feeling very vulnerable, anxious, and to be told we failed on top of that is really not very helpful. We haven't failed on the drugs have failed us. Gilenya, luckily for me, did not fail me. It was the first pill-based treatment for relapsing-remitting MS, and that was brilliant because I really hate injections. And I was better in 2017 than I was in 2007 when I was diagnosed. And now there are a lot more treatments available that look like they might be much more effective than the one that I took. And one of the benefits of making the film is that I got to understand actually how this treatment landscape has really opened up. It's really positive. And I got to interview people at the cutting edge of research, as well as the team here. One of the people I spoke to was Professor Anna Williams at the Centre of Regenerative Medicine in Edinburgh. And she explained to me about stem cell therapy, the different types, there's blood stem cell therapy, and her pioneering work with brain stem cell therapy. She's working on something called oligodendrocyte precursor cells. I just wanted to say that, actually. And these are responsible for creating the myelin sheaths that don't just protect our nerves, but feed them too. So it has a double-edged kind of benefit. So that's really exciting. And she also explained why the protocols for stem cell therapists, the blood stem cell therapists that attack that deal with the immune system, exist within the NHS, and why she would absolutely not recommend going to Mexico, for example, to have your immune system blasted and then rebooted, or for you to be in a hotel room rather than a hospital whilst this reboot is recurring. And Dr. Vaz Narasimhan at Novartis explained to me the breakthroughs in B-cell therapies that are now bringing hope of treatment for the progressive form of the disease. As I said, now is really a good time to have MS. The treatment has changed and the understanding has changed so much since 1993 when my friend Al was diagnosed. But yet, since coming off the trial, I've not taken any drugs at all because I wanted to see how I would be without medication for a while. As Dr. Nicholas also had said to me, Elizabeth, these pills are not Smarties. And I thought I'd sort of give my body a rest. So I've been trying the diet and exercise route. I've been taking vitamin D and probiotics and prebiotics for my gut and some lion's mane mushrooms, which anecdotally they say can help aid remyelination. I've been trying to meditate and get exercise outside. But I am so grateful to have been on the trial because I really value the sense of community that came with it amongst my fellow patients and the world-class team here at Imperial, headed by Dr. Richard Nicholas. And I was and still am hugely grateful for my trial nurse, Caroline Darcy, who advised me when I experienced any new or unusual symptom, In the face of an unpredictable disease, she helped really minimise my fear, and she talked me down from the tree on several occasions. Oh, what is it, Elizabeth? She goes, a headache, you say. Oh, what were you doing last night? Have you taken some ibuprofen? No. Well, perhaps you might call back if that doesn't work. And that was just so useful, because having MS can make you put everything down to it. It's important to be aware of what might be due to MS and what isn't. Because appendicitis is still appendicitis after all, and it requires a completely different treatment. And also with MS, I need to pee all the time. And it's really easy to think, oh, I won't drink so much water, then I won't be going to the loo. But dehydration can cause symptoms that might be ascribed to MS, like dizziness and brain fog. So it's really important to keep hydrated. And if you're working and this is an issue, you don't want to keep walking past people going to the loo every 5 minutes, maybe ask for your desk to be just move nearer to the loos, because small adjustments can make a really big difference. And being on the trial with an almost instant access to advice like that and assessment really helped me negotiate a path through it all. And I'm hugely grateful to Caroline and to other members of the team here, to David and Michelle. And I should do a big shout out to everybody, because their humour, their limitless patience and their common sense was just so valuable when fear might have been derailing all mine. And I'd just like to say that in time, though anxiety about the condition gets shored up behind the damn walls of daily life, and you do get to know what various symptoms might mean and how to manage them, it's a disease that can remain really hidden. People don't necessarily look as if there's anything wrong with them, and that can be very isolating, which is another reason why access to the MS unit here at Charing Cross at Imperial is really vital. I mean, people don't necessarily want to own up to having MS because of fear of how they'll be judged, but it can help to put other people in the picture of how it affects you personally, so they can help, in the right way if necessary, and don't make assumptions about what you might or might not need, because that is actually really annoying. And MS is increasingly diagnosed, and my excellent GP is the first to admit she knows very little about it. It's still not widely understood publicly, and speaking up might help that too. Right, I'm winding up now, you'd be pleased to know. I don't want to sound like an insane Pollyanna, because obviously having MS is pants. But if anyone says, oh, I bet you wish you didn't have it, my feelings are really complicated. Because of course, no one wishes to be ill, no one, or to visit the stress of that on their nearest and dearest. And if I could take that anxiety off their shoulders, of course I would, like a shot. But for the things I've learnt because of MS, I'm glad. Not just about the science and the mental and physical health and the things that I can do to help these, like the diet, the yoga and the meditation, but also about how to be better in the world. And that includes trying to focus more on now and not on what if, and to be grateful, as Al said, for the things that I can do and not bemoan the things I can't. Well, not as much anyway. And I'm going to wind up now with the words that my MS nurse, Caroline Darcy, gave me. I was in her office, I think it was about 2007. I was in her office and I was wondering if I should go to stay with the Arbore tribe. Now, they live in a really remote area in the Rift Valley in southern Ethiopia, and it was for a work assignment. And I was in there going, I've just started on this trial, Caroline. What am I going to do if I'm going out there and I have a relapse? And it would just be awful. I'm literally thousands of miles from anywhere. And she just said, Elizabeth, you can have a relapse anywhere at any time. You've got one life, live it. And I honestly believe the things that I've learned because of MS have helped me to do that better. It's helped me learn how I might be a better human being. Obviously, this is an ongoing project. But it's been, and being on the trial has been the backbone of that burgeoning understanding. And for that, I am enormously grateful. And I'd just like to say thank you very much for your kind attention and really good luck with finding whatever would work for you.